Hey everybody, this is Fiene, Technical Evangelist with Nintex. During my time in support, I came across a couple of issues with some forms, and I've put them together in a collection that I like to call Things We Wish You Knew. And at this time, we're going to take a look at hiding panels in Nintex Forms with formatting rules and where things can go wrong. So let's go take a look at this form and its construction. We can see that we've got two rules, which is great because we've only got two rules to debug. It's going to be much easier to go through and see how they're set up. And for more information, go take a look at the proper rule management video as well. So only two rules to debug. We can see that we want to hide if it's not outright gifts or if it's not show pledge, which are two yes/no checkboxes on the right hand side. And we're going to go see what this form looks like in runtime and see where it's messing up. So now the form has loaded in runtime, and let's take a look at what happens to the form once we execute some of the rules that we have for show and hide. First, we'll click on outright gifts, and we'll scroll down, and one thing that's going to stand out to you is the amount of white space that we have on the form before we hit the save and cancel buttons on the bottom. That's not right. Well, maybe that'll be filled up with the pledge commitments. Well, now things are going to overlap, and that's still not the desired outcome that we want. You can see that we've got some garbled text over here because labels are overlapping labels. We've got multi-line text boxes over panels. Things have run amok. This is not exactly what we want, and we still have a large amount of white space. So let's go ahead and fix this guy. Back in Forms Designer, we're going to go and reference these two rules and see how they were actually applied to the form itself. One thing of note is when you're designing your form and issuing rules, you want to see what controls those rules are applied to. Are they applied to individual controls? Are they applied to a panel with nested controls within them? And how do you notice that? Well, you're going to see an icon over here. See that little checkbox? That's going to be your icon to show that control that you have currently selected has a rule applied to it. There's a couple of shortcuts with this as well too. I can click on the drop down and you're going to get a list of options. What I want to do is I want to select the associated controls, and now I can see all the controls that this rule has been applied to. Well, that's going to be helpful in our situation, and let's take a look at show pledge as well too. So I can click on a control within there and we can see that, all right, the title does not have a rule on it. But what does? Well, now I'm clicked on the panel, and that's got the show hide rule applied to it. So one thing that I'd like to point out is don't apply rules to the individual control when you wish to hide everything within the panel. So how can we quickly make that change? If we look at outright gifts, you're going to see that each and every single individual control in here has a rule applied to it, and that's going to get cumbersome. It's going to take a while going ahead and removing the rule from each one of them. Well, let's use that shortcut that I referenced before. We're going to select all associated controls, and what we're going to do now is we're going to remove from selected controls. Now, that doesn't remove the rule, that just removes the rule from those selected controls. But we want to apply that back to the panel that these controls are nested within. So we can click on the panel, and you can see that these controls are nested within because they still have the control handles wrapped around them, even though we're not clicking specifically on the controls themselves. And we can go back to that shortcut and say add to selected controls. So you can say, Sean, this already has all of the rules applied to them, and I can see the handlebars on here. What's the difference? Well, now if I click on an individual control, you don't see that icon. The rule is not applied to each and every individual control. It's only going to be applied to the panel. All right, so now that we're only hiding the panel with the rule, and the same thing goes for pledge commitments, let's go take a look at how this form looks at runtime. All right, looks about the same. Let's go and click on outright gifts. All right, cool. Things don't look great, but they're a little bit better. See, no blank space there. Let's hit pledge commitments. All right, very cool. That looks great. No blank space. But there's one thing I want to do just to make sure that this guy looks just a little bit better though. One issue that I would see repeatedly in support was overlapping controls. Let's go and take this label control and move that up because we want to hide the panel, and that's fine, but right below that was the label control. So now they're not overlapping. Let's test this out one more time in runtime. Alright, excellent. Now we can see things are looking good like they were before. We're going to click this again, and great, now we can see that things are looking even better. It's a little bit tighter. We'll scroll back up, click on Pledge Commitments. There should be no blank space in there. Yep, everything looks the way we want it to. So what's the takeaway from this? Including proper rule management, you want to make sure that your show hide rules are applied to the panels and not the individual controls that are nested within the panels. And secondly, do not do overlapping controls within the panel that you're trying to hide. So if I've got a control on the outside of the panel that I don't want to hide and everything on the panel that I do want to hide in there, make sure that nothing's overlapping with that panel itself. And that is how to apply proper hide and show rules.